It's time to hear 1 minute from last week's School of Morton podcast. WWE Hall of Famer Ricky Morton and myself, Scotty Campbell, we talked with J.J. Dillon, manager of the Four Horsemen, about his insights into working directly for Vince McMahon in WWE.
I will say this much about Vince McMahon. He's a workaholic, and he lives and eats wrestling 24/7. He used to have a legal pad at his bedside with a pencil on top of it. And if he'd wake up in the middle of the night with an idea, he'd turn the light on and quick jot it down for fear that come morning he would forget. And that Vince, for all his success, and you know, there's people who knock him, don't like him, but he's built an empire. And a lot of people don't know that he declared bankruptcy 2 times before he ever made it. So he bought the business from his father. His father didn't give it to him. And he had a couple points where he failed and had to start over, and he just had a vision. He's the one guy that realized that cable television changed the industry, and that going national and going international was the future of the business.
Check out episode 3 in its entirety, available on iTunes, TuneIn, Podbean, Stitcher, all the usual and popular platforms to hear J.J. Dillon's full interview with Ricky Morton and myself. Welcome to the School of Morton podcast. I'm Scotty Campbell with WWE Hall of Fame inductee, member of the class of 2017, Ricky Morton of the Rock and Roll Express. Hello, Ricky.
Hello, Scotty. Here we are again at the School of Morton. Just another blessed day.
Indeed it is. We had a good time last week talking to J.J. Dillon of Four Horsemen fame and many, many years in the business.
Well, you know, got a lot of comments off that. A lot of people enjoyed it. It's all educational, especially if you're in our business. You know, last week I just came in from Amarillo, Texas, seminar there at the top of Texas. A lot of guys asked me about JJ. I said, man, I just couldn't believe how you learned so much about our business listening to the podcast. So, great compliment to us both, Scotty.
So much history, and I tell you, before we get to this week's guest, we're going to be talking to the one and only Kevin Sullivan.
Oh, yes.
The Taskmaster. What was his name before he was Kevin Sullivan?
Kevin, he was wrestling in the Mobile territory years ago. It's when Lee Fields owned it, and you had handsome Eddie Sullivan. That was one of their top heels there. And at that time, you couldn't use the same last name. I rib Kevin about this all the time, man. His name was Johnny West.
That sounds like a part-time job you wouldn't tell anybody about. I mean,
man.
really, I'm Johnny West.
And before we bring Kevin on, oh, man, he's going to tear me up. Honest, I've known Kevin for 45 years, I would imagine. Maybe longer than that. Real funny. I mean, but him and my dad were great friends, and very cool. I love Kevin. Gosh, I love him. What a worker.
I heard a story. Now, I've heard all these stories about, how Ricky Morton started in professional wrestling and your history with your father in the ring and such that we've talked about before. But a little bird told me a story about Ricky Morton selling photos of Kevin Sullivan. Now, what?
I'm going to wait till we bring Kevin on.
Okay.
Kevin can tell the story a lot better than I can.
You're such a tease.
Oh, I got you. Did I ever tell you how my father got broke into the business?
Let's hear it.
He was stationed out. My dad was a Marine Corps out, and he was out in San Diego, and he went to the wrestling matches. This is funny because, to me, all these years the business has been sacred, but he's in the Marine Corps and at the wrestling matches, and he gets into the matches so much that he hits the ring. But at that time, they supposed to had somebody to hit the ring, to hit the guy. So my daddy, he hits the ring, and he says, I swung at him, I missed him by a foot, and he went over the top rope. He goes. But that was their top heel, so they had to bring my daddy back. I mean, after he did this, because he sold for him, and they broke him into business. He sure did.
No way. So he did a run-in that he wasn't supposed to be the guy.
No, he was a mark out the crowd.
Right? Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, this is years and years ago.
Now, that's a classic story right there. Whew. So Paul Morton had the top heel selling, and he wasn't even on the card or in the business yet. Now that's that's amazing.
You know, my daddy was funny anyway. He could exaggerate a big story too, but man, he could always tell it great, better than anything. I got another story I wanted to tell you. Eddie Gilbert. Me and Eddie Gilbert were partners out in Oklahoma, and Eddie Gilbert was scared. He lived in a little house behind this big mansion that he rented. And that's at the time when the first Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie come out. So he went to see this movie, and he told me he was going to go see it. So he went and seen the movie, and when he got back, and Tom Jones, he just passed away. Tom Jones is a great friend of mine, too, and condolences to him and his family. But Tom Jones had a chainsaw. So after the movie, me and Tom snuck over there to his little place he lived in. I'm outside the window, and I started that chainsaw up. Look here. He come out that front door, didn't hit the porch. I mean, he hit him out the front door, no steps, boom, driveway, and was gone up that road. Me and Tom Jones beat each other to death laughing so hard. But, man. Little
chainsaw.
Little things in our business. You know, people ask me about writing a book. See, that just hit me a while ago when we was talking. So many stories like that you could never imagine.
Yes, sir. Now, by the way, before we start talking about upcoming events at the School of Morton and in Northeast Tennessee, and really places you're going to be across the country, before we get there, I want to tell people, now, there's some T-shirts available at ProWrestlingTees.com. If you type in Ricky Morton in the search box, and Ricky, some of those designs, people are just loving them. I got some comments this week on Twitter about those shirts. Quite a few to choose from, too, right?
Oh, yes. Matter of fact, like I was saying, I'm repeating myself again, but I was out in Amarillo. I must have got 100 messages, about T-shirts, and I told them, it says, go on the Pro Wrestling Tees and check them out, and they did. They loved them all. I know one of the promoters out there had the red, white, and blue one on. It was great. It looked good, too. I need to get me one.
ProWrestlingTees.com. You'll just search for Ricky Morton there. Okay, you've got some shows coming up here, including On the Road in Irwin, Tennessee this Friday.
I can't wait to get on the road again.
Nice job, Willie.
I got you. All right.
Did we have to smoke? I mean, to get those lyrics out there? Willie.
Hey, just kidding. A little foggy in here, boys.
No, we're just happy.
Yeah.
So, National Guard Armory, 615 South Main Street, Friday, October 27th, Irwin, Tennessee, School of Morton Live.
Oh, yes, it will be. We love coming out to Irwin. Gosh, one of our kids is from Irwin. Barrett Stout. Wow, man. Just to watch him grow in our business, to come out. Now, all you people out there in Irwin, he's still in high school, but gosh, man, the way he's changed his whole life, this business has, and it's great. I encourage everybody out in Irwin to come out and see us anywhere you want to. When we're anywhere, come out and see School of Morton. We got some more shows coming up too, Scotty.
Yes, sir. So let me hit on some more School of Morton shows here. Sunday, November 5th is Thanksgiving Turmoil at the School of Morton, 2085 Chuckey Highway in Chuckey, Tennessee. Bell time, 5 p.m. Also, Saturday, November 11th, School of Morton, Rockin' Wrestling in Knoxville, Tennessee at Lost and Found Records, 3710 North Broadway, 3:30 p.m. Saturday, November 11th. Also, let's go back here. We're going down the road Saturday, November 4th, Rock and Roll Express, Ricky Morton and Robert Gibson together again in action for big-time wrestling in Nahunta, Georgia.
In Nahunta, Georgia. Anybody out here know where Nahunta, Georgia is?
Right.
Well, I do, man. Oh, it's a great town. I'm just kidding. We'll be coming back off a cruise. I'm lucky because it's Charleston, and Nahunta's not that far away.
Far.
Yeah. No, it's south. It's on down by Savannah. Looking forward to coming here. And I want to encourage everybody to go ahead and get your tickets, because I talked to the guy earlier. This place is going to be slammed to the... Like Ricky Morton says, they're going to be hanging off the rafters. Myself and Robert Gibson will be there.
Yes, sir. Some other stars, too. Big Time Wrestling's website, also Facebook at Big Time Wrestling for more info about that. That group puts on some incredible shows, so looking forward to that one, too. That's Saturday, November 4th. Now, not to be outdone, the Rock and Roll Express together Saturday, November 11th, Parma, Ohio at CKCW.
Oh, yes, we're going to be there. It's right outside of Cleveland. Robert and I both to be up there. Same thing, on the road again, buddy. After all these years, Robert and I, it's funny to see how the people still come out to see us. And Cleveland, I have a great story about Cleveland. First time I wrestled there was, and if you people ever seen Nikita Koloff, and we've been in the business for a long time, but we're outside the old Cleveland Browns, Cleveland Indians baseball stadium. That's when both of them were one. It was real old, and we were wrestling there, and Nikita was real green in the business, just starting, and locked up with him, and he headbutted me. Gosh, man, it hurt. And I thought, well, accident. Then I locked up with him again, and he headbutted me again. Gosh. So I walked over, and I told Robert, I says, pull this big son of a gun off me. Yeah, you're right. So I went to lock up with him. When he did, I swung my elbow up, and it hit him in the eye.
Oh.
Split his eye. He has done went off. God, he's done turned bipolar, ba-ba-da-da-da. And then I went to lock up with him the next time, and he had his head way back. Didn't headbutt me no more.
Problem solved.
Yeah. Funny story. If you ever get a chance, folks, that's Nikita about that story.
Nikita Koloff. Man, what a character. Now, so I'm lucky. You're lucky. There was no CT scan or BC powder involved that day with that headache. And then the next day, Sunday, November 12th, your students at the School of Morton, 2085 Chuckey Highway, Chuckey, Tennessee, 5 p.m. Thunder on the Mountain. A lot of big matches on the card. Another great opportunity to see the guys.
Yes, and people come out to support us. You got to understand our school has grown so much, Scotty. We have to run 2 shows a month now. That's the way you learn. 3 days a week we train so hard. It's not only for them to wrestle in front of the crowds and stuff. It's for me to see how far along they come along, to take them to another level. A lot of my students now are at the level where I just got to preach to them all the time. But if you hadn't seen the School of Morton show, and this is not because it's my show, you guys come and see it. We go into a lot of places, and it's a great compliment when the people tell you, man, your wrestling's twice better than the wrestling that was just here. But it's okay. I mean, I understand. But we train hard. If you want to be the best, no matter if you're an independent wrestler or whatever, if you want to be the best, you need to train. You just don't come out once a month and do this. You've got to train. And that's what we do here, and that's why our shows are so good.
Ricky Morton has a very busy weekend, November 24th, 25th, and 26th, starting up the road in Madison, West Virginia.
Oh, yes. I'm going to be up here, Madison, West Virginia. Gary Denrin's, it's always a pleasure. Gary's a great promoter, and man, do we have great shows up there, too. I'll always look forward to going there. And then the next day, we're going to be at WrestleCade in Winston-Salem. Robert and I will be there all day signing autographs, having a great time, and then that night, buddy,
ladies and gentlemen,
yes,
WWE presents Starrcade 2017 in Greensboro.
Robert and I will be at Starrcade. Man, I'm so glad Starrcade come back because, they when people think they know a lot about our business and really don't know nothing, when they moved Starrcade out of Greensboro, it broke my heart. Now it's coming back, and I'm looking forward to being a part of it coming back to Greensboro, North Carolina.
And then Christmas Star Wars is Monday, December 25th, 7:30 p.m., Johnson City Community Theater, 600 East Maple Street, Johnson City, Tennessee, where you will be facing the School of Morton champion, Elliott Russell.
Believe it or not, Christmas Day, you get up in the morning, you open your presents, you have a good Christmas breakfast, everybody's over at the house, and then you have a Christmas dinner, and about 3 o'clock, there's nothing to do. Walmart is not even open. So, I hope the fans come out to see our show because I'm telling you, it's going to be great night of action. And bring the whole family. We have a great time. Bring everybody that comes into town to see, y'all just load up and come on down to see us.
Now, Ricky Morton, I grew up watching a lot of different professional wrestling, and part of that was Smoky Mountain Wrestling. And little did I know at that time when I was watching the Heavenly Bodies in the Rock and Roll Express, of course, at that age, I had no idea that the evil tennis racket-carrying Jim Cornette was responsible for bringing the show to town as the promoter.
Well, Jimmy was responsible for a lot of things. But, Scotty, I got to tell you this right here. You know what? And I'm going to have Cornette on our podcast coming up very soon. He can answer a lot of questions that you and the fans want to be answered because, boy, did he have a lot of heat. But little did you know that even though that Jimmy Cornette was the promoter, But the owner of Smoky Mountain Wrestling, the backers of us, well, Jimmy owned it, but the backers, that people that invested into Smoky Mountain Wrestling, was the rock band Black Crow, and their manager. They're the ones that financed Smoky Mountain Wrestling. Very cool, isn't it?
And the promotion, you guys did some awesome shows. Knoxville, also a lot of running in Kentucky. Freedom Hall, Johnson City. I mean, on the road. Very regional. I've heard Cornette say it was too small to be big and too big to be small.
Yes, it was, because we was in a small area here that we ran mostly out of. We went a couple of places where it far off, because our TV went a lot more places than we thought it did. But, you know, Jimmy, my hat's off to him. We're in a business. Jimmy's creation, some of his thoughts, coming up with all the things. You know, Jimmy was a great mind in our business. As a matter of fact, to me, I think he's one of the best. He's up there with the top 5 minds in our business. And that's the reason Jimmy goes off a lot, because, you know, when you dedicate your life to this business, and I tell you this a lot, and I just told you that earlier, a lot of people that think they know, but they don't know. And actually, they really hurt our business and killed our business, even though they still know it's entertainment. But some of the stuff that people come up with, it makes me mad, too. Jimmy will go off on you. You know, I see him turn bipolar on Facebook, internet all the time. So, but it's nothing new for me. I know Jimmy for years.
And I guess we should take our weekly glance at WWE. Now, in the most recent pay-per-view followed by Monday Night Raw, Kurt Angle was, of course, in attendance at both and participated. He had a wrestling match at the pay-per-view and joined the Shield because of Roman Reigns' health condition at the time. Legit. Now, Triple H tweeted that Kurt Angle, by having that match, had an opportunity to be introduced to a new generation of WWE fans. I was just thinking about that. I mean, how much this had to mean to Kurt Angle to have this opportunity at this point in the game.
Scotty, I told you, you know, I've been doing this for 44 years. And I know Kurt, he's up there, he's around all the boys and got that itch. You see, in our business, and when I teach my boys here at my schools, is never stop believing. Never stop dreaming. And I'm telling you, I just know. I know that Kurt Angle was beside himself just to go out to the ring, to be a part of that. And, you know, and speaking of something else from the pay-per-view, buddy, I don't know if anybody, but I did, is AJ Styles and Finn Balor. The match was so good, and guys, understand me. This is where I come up with the part. It ain't what you do, it's how you do it. Now, they did some little flying, but they worked the match. AJ Styles and Finn Balor, they told a great story. This is what our business is about, and all the credit, you know, and I give these guys, you know, they're such a credit to our business. And if you want to learn to study this stuff, man, you know, it's not about shooting Hugo out of a cannon. It's not about going through tables. It's about having a wrestling match, telling a story. What a great job they done. I just, if they're out there listening, if you see it, I'm just tell them that. But my hat's off to both of them guys. They just totally ripped them apart that night. It was great.
Yes, it was. All right, Ricky Morton. Should we bring our guest on at this time?
I think we should.
Okay.
Hello, Kevin.
Hey, Ricky.
How you doing, my friend?
How are you?
I'm doing
Good.
great, man. Thanks for joining us here today on our podcast. But I was telling Scotty here early, and I knew we might as well get it out while we're sitting here talking. We was talking about when I was a kid in wrestling, when I first met Kevin Sullivan.
Wait a minute, Scott. He's trying to lay down an alibi.
Oh, this early?
He used to sell my pictures in Nashville, right? And every week I'd say to him, how many pictures you sold? Oh, tough crowd. They ain't buying any. And I would go out and I'd be coming back from the ring and people would say, can you sign my autograph? So I found out he was taking the pictures and copying them. So all of his people that listen to this podcast, he owes me $44 compounded daily for 50 years. So I think it's $16,742. So you better send the money in soon.
Kevin, will you take a check?
Yeah,
Yeah.
sure.
Hey, man, you know what? What a great pleasure to have you on here today, Kevin, because
Well,
I absolutely, you know this, I absolutely love you. And, you know, you made a comment to me the other day, and I just wanted to get this out here. He told me, he said, Ricky Morton, you were the greatest baby face I've ever seen in the business. But I corrected Kevin because I wasn't the greatest baby face. And Kevin, well, talk about this man right now. The greatest baby face I think ever in this business was Ken Lucas. And give me your feelings, Kevin, about Ken Lucas and what he done for your career.
well, I was lucky like Ricky was. I became Kenny's partner when I was 4 months into the business. I learned so much being his partner. There is a 1A, 1B, Scott, and I think Ricky is the closest. Ken Lucas is the greatest baby face I've ever seen, and Ricky is a mirror image, and he might have surpassed Ken because his selling was just that little bit better. Kenny was a little bit bigger, but I saw Ken Lucas have a match with Bobby Shane. And if people don't know who Bobby Shane is, he was one of the greatest heels of all times. He died young in a plane crash. And they had a feud in Pensacola for 3 weeks. And Bobby was a red hot baby face. And the match lasted 55 minutes before they stopped it on double blood. And they didn't throw a punch till 46 minutes. And he had all kinds of heat. But Punky is the greatest baby face of his generation. And I always look forward to working with the Rock and Roll Express because if you couldn't get a riot beating the shit out of Punky, you had to be dead. You had to be dead. I mean, girls would be crying, old ladies would be crying. Of course, they probably spent the night with them at the hotel room back then. 8 to 80, blind, cripple, crazy was Ricky's motto.
Wow, Kevin.
Going back to Ken Lucas, Ken was the greatest baby face of all times. And Ricky got with Ken in Southwest, and I used to be amazed when they were on USA, and I used to watch them on Saturday mid-morning, and I used to say, wow, Ricky is going to be something he was. And I'm going to get a little segue into this. You know, Ricky's dad was the toughest referee in the history of the wrestling business. His dad looked like Popeye. And he wouldn't punch them in the face. He'd club them on the side of the head, and they would drop like flies. So Ricky comes from, you know, his daddy's stock, and then with Ken Lucas. I mean, Scott, did you ever seen a YouTube of Ken Lucas?
Yes, extremely awesome at what he did.
And Ricky and him have the same comeback. Ricky, don't you think he was by far the greatest babyface you ever saw on a comeback?
I tried. You know, Kevin, you was talking about this earlier. You know, I do a lot of seminars, and you do too. And then when I go into the seminars, and these guys, you know, I was at one place where there were ex-football players, and I'm trying to talk to them about the history of our business. And then I stopped and asked them. I says, you know, and I asked these. I says, who is Johnny Unitas? And every one of them come up with this big spiel. So then I stopped and asked him, I said, who's Ken Lucas? I said, now, you want to be in our business, but you are an ex-football player. You know everything about football, but you don't know shit about wrestling. Ken Lucas, I mean, if you don't know who he is in our business, and if you're out there and you're trying to get in our business, you need to quit. Ken Lucas, man, just nobody understood the roots that he planted for all us young boys in the business. Kevin, he was great. I mean, not only great, I think he should be known a lot more in our business for what he done for it.
Yeah, and he mostly stayed in the Pensacola area. You know that.
Yes, I did.
And I was pretty good friends with Jack Briscoe, and Jack Briscoe told me that the second greatest matches he ever had, and you were there for one of them, Punky, was him and Lucas. Now, he said he wrestled Dory all over the country, but Kenny just in Pensacola or Mobile. He said that Ken Lucas was one of the top baby faces he ever worked against. That's coming high praise. And I mean, the finish they came up with at the time where Luke put the sleeper on him.
Put the sleeper on him, and then he put him asleep, but Jack had his feet on the ropes, leading him back on top of Lucas, and they counted Lucas' shoulders out, and then when they rung the bell, what a finish. Gosh, I mean, that's unbelievable, mind-blowing, Kevin. But, Kevin, let's get back into something here now. I want to talk about your career, buddy. I know that you went on, I mean, you were real big in Florida. I know you and Dusty had a lot going on down in Eddie Graham's territory. Tell us a little something about that, Kevin. How everything got started. I mean, don't get me wrong. I don't mean this bad about you. Well, the dark side. That's what I say.
Yeah. Here's how it happened, Ricky. It was pretty. Dusty let me orchestrate this. I had been a babyface in Florida with Mike Graham, and I left and I went to Knoxville, which Blackjack owned, and I became a heel. And when I came back, the Mulligans, Blackjack and Barry were there. And half the babyface was saying, this ain't the same guy that left here. He's no good. And Mike and the other half the babyface was saying, oh, how can you judge a book by its cover, Mulligan, because you weren't always a good guy either. So we were lucky enough, that we had Steve Kern send an interview in from Minneapolis saying, hey, Mike, this is definitely not the same guy. I've wrestled him and he's no good. And what happened was I ended up wrestling Barry on TV with commercials. Wrestling was 47 minutes. I won 46 minutes with Barry. I fell out of the ring. He held the ropes. I came in. I did the same thing for him when he fell out of the ropes. But when he came in, I kicked him in the face, beat him 1, 2, 3. And Mike Graham was commentating. And Mike was really a tough guy, especially for his size. And he jumped up and said, I've been protecting you all along. What are you doing? And Ricky, I took that belt and I swung it like a ball bat and knocked him off the stool and hard-weighted him. And he was so pissed at me. This is back in the day when your jeans had the buttons, the fly.
Yeah.
I blew the buttons off his fly when he fell down. He's chasing me, and his pants have fallen down. So, and the other thing was MTV had first started, and that's when Billy Idol, White Wedding, Michael Jackson, Thriller, Ozzy Osbourne, Alex Cooper. And then that was the same time the horror movies were big, Halloween, Freddy, blah, blah, blah. And I started to do that. And then when I started slowly by painting my eyes underneath, like I hadn't been sleeping, everybody knows what Florida was built on in the 80s.
Oh, yes, I got you.
People are saying, this guy's staying up at night. He ain't going to bed. And I used to be, during my interview, I'd be talking about Dusty, and I'd say, oh, by the way, I see that brown LTD follow me. You're not going to catch me.
Yeah.
So, I just kept on going down that road and told the story. It's no different than the way you tell a story.
So tell me about, when did the spike come in?
The spike came in. It came in on the Midnight Rider deal. Here's the thing. Dusty, you did business with him, Ricky.
Yes.
We're not talking bad about a friend of ours that, God rest his soul, but Dusty had an ego. When you sold out little towns and he had the cards stacked, he was not happy that you were selling out little towns.
Yes.
Let me tell you something, Kevin Sullivan. Why you over here selling out houses if American Dream's not on the top of the card? You ain't going to be outdrawing me, buddy.
You got it. But he did the right thing. One of the hottest angles I ever did with him was he beat me. First, we did this. Christmas time, it was a lose-or-leave town match, and it was at St. Pete at the Bayfront Center, and there was Santa Claus walking through the audience. Then when it came from me and Dusty in the cage, everybody thought I was going to be beat. Jake Roberts came out as Santa Claus and gave me an atomizer. I stuck it down Dusty's throat, beat him 1, 2, 3. And as we're walking back, this is the funniest thing that ever happened to me in the wrestling business. a guy on the first balcony, which was about 20 feet above the ground, yelled out to, to Jake, "Screw Santa." And he was so hot, I said something back to him, and he jumped off the balcony, landed in front of me, broke both of his legs. Wow. We just walked over him. So that's when the Midnight Rider came. And it was Dusty's idea for the spike, because the Midnight Rider was mystical, and Dusty gave me the idea of the spike, and we went on with there. The thing for a heel, and I always say this, for a heel to really draw money, for a babyface to get over, a heel has to be a dragon. He can't be a salamander. You know what I mean? The babyface has to have trials and tribulations to get over. And I had Mulligan, I had Black Barry, I had Dusty. I even worked with Andre quite a bit down there. A superstar Billy Graham. I mean, I had a host of gigantic baby faces that knew I got to sell for this guy to get over. He's supposed to have this extra power. And they did it right. It's like, you understand the psychology of the business, which is lacking, and we know it is. And I think it is done on purpose because they want to rub out the history of the wrestling business.
Yes, I got you. What you're going to, Kevin, I was going to ask you here, too, because, you work with a lot of different people and with their size. And being you know how to deal with this, but I'm going to say, because a lot of the fans wanted to ask me, how important was it with you getting over with Blackjack?
Okay, here's what got me over with those guys. The first night they were going to go with me in Orlando, Blackjack said, we dressed in separate dressing rooms, and they called me over the babyface dressing room, and Dusty said, "Let's work a DQ." And Blackjack said to Dusty, he said, "No, he's going to beat me, and you're going to come out for the save, and he's going to drop you and Barry too." And the thing that I always say, Punky, and you were one too, we were an illusion. These guys I was 5'8" at tops, but I was 250. And what I did was I would go to the ring first in a whirlwind, and as Blackjack came down, he was 6'9". I would jump him, beat him up, and then throw him in the ring. And when I came in the ring, I was standing up above him. And as you're looking at someone in the ring, they're up 4 feet anyway. So the size difference was he was laying down and I was up. So I looked like King Kong. And I did that to every one of them to take my liability away. And then when I did work with them, the comeback was easy because they would throw me to the floor, or I'd throw them to the floor. I'd be beating the crap out of them. And then they would nail me, throw me back in. And I would always I wouldn't beg off, but I would come from my back to my knees and wouldn't get any further. So when Mulligan or the Giant stepped over the ropes, the difference in size was another 3 feet and the people would pop. But I mean, I learned that psychology from Ken Lucas like you did.
You know what, Kevin? Just what you just said right then is what I preach here at my wrestling school. Every day I go back to the basics. I preach and I preach and I preach. And that was one of the smartest things I ever heard anybody say about being a heel. When you rode him into the ring, he was always laying down. That was great, Kevin. I love that.
Thank you.
And I want my kids to understand. But you put it in a different way because I was always a baby face.
Yeah.
And how to do it because I always worked with giants.
Yeah.
And overcome it because we made it look real. And Kevin, that was one of the greatest answers.
And Ricky, we made it at the time when it was a big man's business.
Yes.
So I knew what my limitations were. So I said, how do I cover them up? And I was lucky enough to have baby faces like you that said, hey, the guy's got something, let him get the heat on. I mean, it's like I said before, everybody talks about you're selling. I told you I was at a music festival with the group's called Stallion, and one of the songs is Sell Ricky Sell. I laughed my ass off. But Scott, it wasn't that he was just a great seller. He never died. The difference was a lot of guys who were supposedly great performers, and they were, they have a tendency to die. Ricky never died, so the people were always clinging to the seats. Oh, he may come back. He may. Oh, there he is. He didn't do it, but then it was. And then when he got to come back, his punches looked like they were killing you. And all you had to do was go snap your head back, and you got a pop, a pop, a pop, a pop. A big one, shoot you. He'd shoot you in, drop kick, boom, take a bump, or in my case, stagger.
I got you. Let me ask you, Kevin, and this really, I always wanted to answer this, and I know you could answer. I know that after our era, and we did all this, and it was so easy, but when you went to WCW, and you tried that, you try to teach them boys that. Give me a little input on that. Was it hard dealing with a lot of the guys? Was it? I mean, I didn't know. I got to a point where I just said the heck with it. I just left the territory.
What happened, Ricky, was the unfortunate thing was Vince had total control, okay, in his part. Well, when the thing happened and they gave me the book, I had control, but then there was too many outside influences. And I said to my boss one time, he said, why don't you listen to these guys? They got great ideas. And I said, no one's ever come in and give me an idea that said, hey, I got an idea for Joe Blow. This would be very good for me. It's always for me. And I said, it may work, but he wants to be on top. Every 10 ideas I have is me, 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 me. This is supposed to be a team. It's supposed to be a team effort. Let's get this thing over. It was a great run, but I think that era was sort of the decline. And now I watched the WWE pay-per-view, and Monday, I couldn't understand it. There's 5 against 3. They give Kurt Angle no build-up, and he's, that was his first night back in 11 years, they said. They do a thing where they hurt him. Now there's 5 on 2, and then they take the kid that you think is going to be the next star, and Kane turns on them and throws him in a garbage truck that got a compastor poster and takes him off. I'm saying, what is this? And they have the match, tables, ladders, and chairs, and nobody's hitting anybody in the head because of the concussion issue, which I agree with, but don't have it if you can't do it. It's like having a gunfight, but you can't shoot the gun. I think that, and I hear, and I watched the whole card, so I went, which I usually don't do, but I went on the internet to see these comments. And I think that the quality is so down that the new fans think this is wonderful. You're starting to see it, a little bit of revolt. Like we were in that town outside of Charlottesville, there was 1,700 people. The people were clamoring for Punky, Scott. So I think...
Kevin, and just get back to that. I know that nowadays that they're trying to capture a new audience or something. But one thing to me that they forget about is the old fans. And they're still out there. And that proved it. It's not just because of us. It's because look at the card we had there, Kevin. I'm one of the guys here. One person don't do nothing. It takes everybody to do this. That card we had that night, man, we had a great card there. J.J. Dillon, you, and, Robert and I.
And the 2 kids that were in the main event, the Samoan kid.
Oh, yes.
That was my 4th generation of working with Samoans from Peter Maivia on. Yes. So, I worked with their great-grandfather, for God's sakes. So, there's a lot of talent still out there. And unless you fall into the cookie-cutter syndrome that WWE wants, I think there's a little bit of revolt. People want to see. I saw something on the internet. Now, you can't believe everything on the internet, Scott, but do you know what the average age for a WWE viewer is?
I'm going to guess early 20s now.
52.
Wow.
Are you kidding me?
No, that means they're going by the millenniums, right?
Yeah.
Wow. So totally bypassing that group.
So I work for a group in LA called PCW. They did $96,000. The tickets are 100, 75, 50, 45, and stands 40. And it's all millenniums and fathers bringing their sons to what they once saw as wrestling. So it's almost like there's a little bit of, hey, I don't want to watch that, but I will go watch this stuff that looks like wrestling. You know what I mean? They're entertainment, and we're trying to be still sport. And even though the cat's out of the bag, and I agree with Jimmy Cornette, the toothpaste can't go back into the tube. Hey, I know when I go to see, like the Wonder Woman movie, I watched that. I know she's not living on a real island. I know this is a movie, but I let it go for an hour and a half or 2 hours and enjoy the movie. And if you give them something, and there's not many Punky Mortons, there's no Punky Mortons left, and there's not anybody that I see coming close yet. But if you give them something to believe in for that match, they'll walk out and say, that one might have been real, because we still want to believe that there's a little bit of reality to this thing.
And Kevin, you don't get that no more. Used to, people would tell you, that first match, that match, man, that was real. And you don't get that no more. But you know what? One thing I did see, you talked about the pay-per-view the other night, and that Fowler kid and AJ Styles, I watched their match. And to me, it was one of the best matches I thought on the whole daggum show, because it was close to more of working. They didn't do the overboard stuff. I really liked that match.
I did too.
Gentlemen, I'm curious, is there a chance that we can regain some of that illusion for people like me that still want to be entertained? I miss good versus evil, Kevin Sullivan. Frankly, I miss being afraid of you and Kamala and Abdullah the Butcher as a child. I really do. I miss that type of talent.
Well, I'll give you something. Brock, people really think he's the baddest man on the planet. Well, and this is no disrespect to Brock. The first time he went to UFC, he didn't win, right? And then he won, which was great. But people believe in Brock's stuff so much, they're still in a willing suspension of disbelief. And I think it can be brought back in a way. It will never be what it once was, but it can be that people are scared. But you can't get on Twitter and thank your opponent 30 minutes later and say, Brock doesn't like to talk his matches over. I just don't understand. When you're in the dressing room, you can say thank you. You don't need to let the whole world know. You know what I mean? But it's a different world and different era, and I don't know if we ever can turn back the hands of time.
But in our day, we didn't even share the same dressing room. The heels and the babyface didn't. You didn't talk to each other. And then when your match was over, you thanked them in the ring. And in the match, nobody knew, not a soul knew, not even the boys, that Kane was up under the ring. And when he came out in the match, none of them. See, that's things that were sacred in our days. I mean, a lot of times, and I'm serious, 80% of the time, we didn't even get a finish until we was going to the ring. It was kayfabe so much. But, and one thing was about WCW, you didn't even have to watch their shows. You knew the finishes on Sunday. What they were doing Monday night.
Right.
The Facebook and social media and all that stuff.
Right.
But we didn't have social media our day. And hey, thank God we didn't. That's for the good and the bad. Okay.
Kevin Sullivan, you mentioned Brock Lesnar, so that got me to thinking about Paul Heyman and your time in ECW.
I broke Paulie into the business. I tried to run him out of the business. I gave him a guy called Tombstone. He was a big bodybuilder, and he worked an angle with Scott Hall when Scott was a babyface. And I tell Scott, when Paul jumps up in the apron, drill him, knock his ass off. He did it every night. And I'm saying to myself, this kid's got to quit tonight. I know he is. And he get knocked back on his ass. Paul didn't know how to take a bump, and he's landing on cement. There wasn't any pads at the time. And he come back, and he wouldn't complain. And I'm thinking, whoa, boy, I got to get. And I go to Scott, and, hey, did you show you hit him, or did you tell him you were going to hit him? No, I hit him. And Scott was a rookie. And Scott would nail him out, and he kept up. So lo and behold, I go to Paul later on. Paul's running a company, and Paul is a student of the business like Ricky is. He's a great talker. He doesn't yell, he enunciates. And he had a good thing going with ECW. If he got into bigger markets, I believe, with his television at the right time, because when he was going to Florida, and this is before everybody was TiVo and VCR, he was on like at 1 o'clock in the morning, and he still drew pretty well. And a lot of the markets he went to, he was on at bad times and bad stations. I actually think that if Paul had a better stations and he had slowly expanded, if he had gone from New York, Philly to New York, Boston, maybe Cleveland, Buffalo, and stayed in that area, and then made a march and got a couple of sponsors behind him, I think he'd still be in business today. I think he's a brilliant guy. And I had the match with Abdullah, and it was a shoot match. My interview was a shoot match. Every one of my matches is a shoot match. Abdullah was great for me to work with. Every time I look at the pinky on my left hand, I see Abdullah because it's crooked. And him hit me with the bell. Thank God it wasn't my head, But Abdullah was a big money drawer, and you thought he was real.
Dusty put me with him before I did the angle with Flair, and and Abdullah really got me over. Truly, he was a monster.
Oh, he was. Yeah.
It's like Scotty was talking that he missed being afraid.
Yeah.
Even I knew the business was a work, and he put me over. I was still afraid of him. Gosh.
Oh, I know.
It is hard to me. Some of the answers you gave here today was incredible, Kevin.
Thank you.
No, that's why I like having you on here, because, it's hard. It's me, like I got a school, and I do seminars, but I don't have, and don't get me wrong, I'm not the guy that's going to teach you to grab a headlock. I'm the guy that's going to teach you how to work and teach you how to take care of your opponent. It's not about, it's about putting butts in seats. And,
absolutely, Ricky.
And to come back and to do something. It's not about if my Hurricane Corona looked good or if my drop kick looked good. Who cares? It's about the finish, how you tell a story from the beginning to the end for the people to come back and see you again next week. And it's a lost art to me. I don't understand it.
Well, we both go out and we're with promoters, and they say, "Oh, I'm only going around the town 4 times a year because I don't want to burn it out." What do you mean burn it out? If you give them something hot enough, you know what I mean?
Oh, I love it.
Yeah, it just drives me crazy. Somebody said to me, "Oh, I'm only going around this town 3 times a year," and he had about 2,000 people. I said, "You know what's going to happen?" He said, "No." What? I said, 2 weeks from now, somebody's going to come in here, run the town with a horrible show, and he's going to kill your town. You better protect your town. And it just common sense. What we know about the wrestling business is that some people don't even understand business. They're doing great business. Why would you leave a town vacant for 4 months or 3 months when you just did 2,000 people? Some guy's going to have a ring and pull it and get his friends to work for practically nothing to kill the town. I just don't understand some people's thinking.
It happens every day. You go into a town and you do good, and every every outlaw promoter that don't have a clue, I don't know whether to wind their butt or scratch their watch, that comes in and tries to run our business. And that's what really makes me mad. And what really gets me mad, Kevin, sometimes is people that think they know, but they don't know. And they don't have a clue what we went through to get where we're at today. I thank you for the compliments, but I don't put myself that way. My way is this is a business. This is how I feed my family.
Ricky, you understand the key to this business, Scott? It's called the professional wrestling business, meaning you have to make money. It's what you do for a living. There's a lot of people in the business that do it for nothing, and they want to just have a belt and parade around as a champion. This is a wrestling business. And a lot of these, what he said, outlaws, not independent, these outlaws will run shows in parking lots free. They'll run it in a meat market free. They have no idea what they're doing, and they're not going to get any better. And it's going to be hurt the wrestling business.
And this just happened to me, Kevin, and this is what they don't understand. And I want a lot of the promoters out there to understand this is why we come into a town, we ask for half of our money before we even get there. You know, a guy put this on a show. This is no joke. This is no game. This is how I feed my family. I was before the people made millions of dollars. I was before all that. Kevin, I was never on a contract. But then when you call the guy up and you're getting ready to go to your town, he tells you, I canceled that a month ago. A month ago? But why didn't you call and tell me?
Yeah.
Well, why? I mean, it's just canceled. Yeah, but dude, this is not no Saturday night special for me. This is what I do for a living, man. If I was there in front, and I don't bother nobody. I don't never. But I think if I was in front of him, I would have slapped him. I'm not even like that, but they don't understand.
They don't understand. They don't think you give a shit because they're not business people.
Yes, I know that, and
that's when I get to give. I work for PCW. Great people that run it. The guy that is the money guy is on top of everything. Ricky, I know that you're going to be out there soon. I mean, the show we did together in Virginia, that guy's a class act.
It's Marvin Ward. Yeah, Marvin Ward is good. You know, Kevin, in big time wrestling, have you worked with these guys yet for big time?
I've only worked with Terry one time.
Yes, and now I like working for them. They're class A promotion.
Yeah.
You know, that's the kind of people you like working for, and it's a bunch of them out there. But there's a lot of rotten tomatoes out there that that come in, that scam the sponsors, that come in, that then when you do bring a good show in, they don't want you there because they said, God, we don't want that horrible stuff here.
You're absolutely right.
Kevin Sullivan, I wanted to also ask you about your first heel run that you had in Memphis specifically. I understand, and I've seen some footage along the way of you working with the honky-tonk man, Wayne Ferris.
Get me somebody out here to wrestle, I don't care who it is.
You got him.
Oh, so I just wondered if you had anything you wanted to share about how the crowd reacted to him at that time, maybe the heat you had, and Jimmy Hart's component of the equation.
We had heat because I got in there and the town was not doing well. I was recruited from Atlanta. I was working for Jim Barnett in a great position. I had turned from babyface to heel against Tony Atlas, who was my partner. And Jared had come to the show and he saw my match and he asked Jim, could he take me? And Jim said, well, ask Kevin. And I went and I saw what the houses were and I saw the matches. Lawler and Dundee were baby faces and they were beating everybody. And then I looked at the card and every baby face got beat except me. And I went to Lawler and Jared, I said, I got to go. He said, why? I said, you're not going to draw a dime. And no disrespect for Lawler and Dundee, but they've been for years heel, babyface, but always going over. And we drew about $11,000 in Memphis. He said, well, what would you do? I said, next week, I'd have Jimmy Hart wrestle Jerry Lawler for the Southern Heavyweight belt with Lawler with boxing gloves and me and Ferris as the two special referees. I beat every babyface on this card and not just beat them, I would destroy them. So that week we did it. And the house jumped a little, like to 15, because they thought Lawler was going to beat Jimmy. And I'll never forget, Bill Dundee came in the dressing room and looked at me and said, well, you just killed the territory. The next week we did $37,000.
Wow.
Yeah, and it was because we beat Dundee and Lawler. And now they had something to fight for. And then when Jimmy put the first family together, it meant something. Wayne was very good at that time. Yeah, I enjoyed work for Wayne.
One of my favorites to watch even until this day. During your time with WCW, specifically, I want you to share some memories of your time with Cactus Jack Mick Foley and some of the other folks that you were around that same period?
Cactus was great. Him and I were tag team partners, and then I had Buzz Sawyer, who was as legit as, the day is long. But then when I got involved in the Hogan thing, I felt like a clown coming out of the clown car, but I was doing it for a reason, because all these guys were his friends and he felt comfortable working with them. And I knew I had to turn him heel. I kept him at my house the night he turned heel, and I waited till the third match was on before we drove to the building when he turned heel. But I mean, you looking back at that Cactus Jack, I never thought he'd become the star he was. It was a great, great era, but I'm not trying to kiss Punky's ass, but, they don't make many Punky Mortons.
Well, thank you, Kevin.
All you people send me the $44 he owes.
Hey, we get a GoFundMe for I can pay Kevin back, please.
That's hilarious.
Crook. But we were speaking earlier, Kevin. You talking about these guys that just want to be a champion.
Yeah.
And the people don't really know our business. You see, I couldn't draw money being a champion. I had to fight to win a champion. You understand what I'm saying? I had to chase the heel. You had to chase the heel to draw money. They don't understand that.
I want to tell you how way off we are now. Everybody's a babyface champion. When boxing hit its slump, and then the biggest error it had was the run from when Ali first came into the business till he was through, okay? He was a heel. He got that from Gorgeous George. He went to a radio show in Louisville, Kentucky, where Gorgeous George was talking, and he understood, I'm a heel champion, and people are going to pay to see me get beat. They're not going to pay to see me keep the title. And you got to fight from hey, if the story is the big bad wolf, but in the second page, the Little Red Riding Hood shoots the wolf in the head, that's the end of the story. I mean, that story is a long story. I mean, that's why I don't understand how everybody is either equal today. The only guy they try to protect, in my estimation, is Brock. Everybody else gets beat. There's no and now Brock is a babyface. There's no heel. There's no one that's screwing anybody. And then the only thing I didn't like, Funky, about AJ's match and Finn's, too sweet at the end.
Yes.
NWO, brother. That's NWO. You're reminding people that there's no NWO in the building. That was bull. But that was not their fault. They're just young kids that don't understand. It's like if I come out with tassels, if I'm a young kid come out with tassels and the blonde hair and the rock and roll music, I'm just reminding people that Punky Morton is not in the building.
I was at a show the other night, and I had one of my kids. He's in the Bullet Club over in Japan. They do the same thing, which I'm with you. I don't like that stuff at the end of the match. But I told him, I says, look here, I want you to look. All the boys, they had a bunch of them from Ring of Honor, from out in L.A., TNA was on a big old show. And I said, look down this hallway right here, and you tell me what you see. He goes, what are you talking about? I said, see, that's what I'm trying to tell you. Look at every one of y'all. Every one of you look just alike.
Yeah.
I said, you just got different color tights on. Y'all all look just alike. The same hairdo, the same beard, the same. Yeah. Jesus Christ, somebody be different. Come up with something. God, this went by quick. I surely enjoy having you on my show. I surely enjoy you. You're a big part.
Thank you.
But no, stop and listen to me, though. You're a big part of my life. You and the guys,
you're a big part of my life. I've known you since you were a little thief. So.
You little thief, you. You're going to never live that down.
Oh, I know. But I wouldn't have it any other way. Kevin, thank you so much for being on my show.
Thank you, Ricky. Thank you, Scott. I appreciate it.
Until I see you again, I absolutely adore you. You have a good day, my friend.
Until I see you again, brother, happy trails, like Roy Rogers used to sing.
Yes. Thank you again, Kevin.
Thank you, punk.
She said, Rama, lama, bama, lama, rock and roll is